Loaded show here today from ACC kickoff in the Hilton Uptown Charlotte. We've got a lot of great guests stopping by on the program. From ESPN, we'll chat with Ryan McGee and Wes Durham. Also, Michael Strickland is in the ACC Commissioner's office. He's the director of football. He took some time to chat with us on today's show. A loaded edition of Locked On Blue Devils starts right now.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Blue Devils here. J.J. Jackson with Michael Strickland, the Senior Vice President of ACC Football, joining us here at ACC Kickoff. Michael, how's your day going so far?
Oh, things are great. We've got another good crowd here for day 2 of football kickoff, and really getting excited for the start of the season. It's right around the corner.
Are you at the point where each day you wake up and look at the calendar to see how many more days are left to go until football season?
I don't actually look at the calendar to count. I can just feel by my angst and intensity and emotional state that we're getting really, really close to the start of the season. So a lot of expectations and anticipation for what's ahead.
So when you look at this upcoming football season, this time of year, day to day, I just listed the title there for you as kind of the commissioner and director of football operations in the ACC. What does that look like? What are those day-to-day responsibilities?
Globally speaking, I'm the chief sport administrator for football, so I handle all of our football administration. So I'm their liaison with our head football coaches and their staffs, athletic directors for all topics related to football, handle our football schedule development, both conference and helping our schools with their non-conference scheduling, work with ESPN on the television programming from a season-to-season and week-to-week perspective. Our regular season football administration, the policies and procedures, game management, officiating, things like that. All of our non-CFP bowl agreements are part of my responsibility, and then also making sure that we run and operate the football championship game here in Charlotte in an appropriate manner. So those are my kind of scope of duties from a day-to-day perspective. It's a fascinating job, and you kind of head on a swivel. You never know what the crisis of the day might be, but you kind of tackle all those projects throughout the course of the year.
That's got to bring a level of enjoyment to it that not every day is the same. You've got different challenges that may come up along the way.
It really is. It keeps you fresh and vibrant, and you got to be well read and keep up to date on all the current issues and really maintain your level of communication with our membership, our coaches, our athletic directors within our office, and then also our peers nationally. My counterparts in the other conferences. And making sure we have really good relationships, really good communication, particularly when we know we're going to disagree on something. We know it's a competitive environment, both within the conference and nationally, and so we work real hard to have a nice foundation, baseline of mutual respect and admiration, so that when we do have bumps in the road, there's some goodwill to fall back on.
Well, you mentioned travel. You mentioned the schedules that take place. Here we are the second year with new members in the ACC. When you look at SMU, you look at Cal and Stanford. What were those challenges initially when they're added to the footprint? Because geographically, obviously, that expands it a whole lot.
Yeah, so we had, when we were at 14 members, the most recent schedule iteration, we went to kind of like a 3-5-5 scheduling model. We had that. I think we were able to get through 2 seasons of that, and we felt really good about that. But then we made the decision to expand with the unique, geographic nature that we've got, obviously speaking. And so when we changed our schedule model, we were very deliberate and intentional about thinking through what our priorities were. And among them was to manage the east to west coast travel for those kind of 14 members that were already here. And so we built a model that spaced that out, equally over the course of a 7-year rotation, never going out there in consecutive seasons. So we did a really good job of building a new schedule model that mitigated the travel impact for our east coast based teams. And then for Stanford and Cal, we've done on an annual basis, I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to get them into a Friday night game on the East Coast where they've got Saturday to travel back. We've managed to place their open dates very strategically so that it happens after one of their East Coast trips. We've been fortunate that the last couple seasons have been 2 open date seasons, so we got more room to play with. Starting next year, we go back to 1 open date, so that will constrict us a little bit there. we also were very intentional about communicating with Stanford and Cal and their experience. And it really, from a football perspective, it went really, really well last year. The players themselves said that the travel was not an issue. So that was really good feedback to get.
How frequently are you getting that feedback? I mean, obviously the first year's done, you're getting set for the second season. Is that something that you're wanting to have check-ins throughout the course of the season, or more so reflecting once everything's come to a close?
Not just on scheduling or travel. There's no shortage of feedback on anything related to football. So we are accessible 24/7, 365, text message, email, phone, you name it. Sometimes you hear from the team that lost the game more than you hear from the team that won the game, but that's okay. It goes with the territory. We've got really good communication with our football programs, and we go out of our way when new staffs arrive to go and have an orientation meeting every February. And one of the things I lead with in all of those meetings and presentations is we're going to have disagreements. We got to be able to communicate it. The last thing we want, or I want, is for you to be upset about something and not say it, and it just swells up inside. I'd rather hear it as soon as possible, get it off your chest, and then let's talk about it. And how can we resolve it? How can we fix it? We might have to agree to disagree, but communication is really, really important. So that's worked out well for us.
So you mentioned the travel being one of the big things talked about right now and kind of putting these schedules together. I know that everybody is looking at the ever-changing landscape in college football with regards to the number of playoff teams that are there, what just the future of the sport looks like. Day-to-day conversations with the CFP, kind of peel back the curtains a little bit. What does that look like from your perspective?
I do something on scheduling every day, and sometimes it's nuts and bolts, helping a school negotiate a non-conference series with a particular school, or helping them strategize how they're going to build out their long-term non-conference schedule. Sometimes new staff show up and they want to get out of a couple of games and replace them with something else. So you're always doing things in that regard, kind of the blocking and tackling of non-conference schedule development. But at the same time, we work with our athletic directors and the commissioner in particular about long-term strategy that's across the board. And how many conference games should we be playing? What types of conference games? What's the mix? How often does everybody need to play one another? Which matchups need to happen every year or most years? Which matchups maybe have less need to be played on a regular basis because of our new geography? And then what are our non-conference strength of schedule needs, minimum requirements, and always making sure, at the end of the day, our job is to make sure any given season, if we've got a team that goes out there and plays well, that they've got a schedule infrastructure that will deliver for them all the strength of schedule metrics they need to be a CFP contender.
You look at the schedules for these teams and so many challenging non-conference games, and then you get into ACC play, and week after week, it's a gauntlet in its own right. Specific to kind of Duke and the audience here, rivalries are such a big part of the sport and the game models that you're putting. The Duke-UNC game comes to mind so frequently, and I know as passionate as college fans are, there's got to be, you want to make sure that you can hold on to as many of those rivalries.
Yes, and I give our athletic directors a lot of credit, in particular for this most recent iteration of the schedule model. For each school, we identified a different number of primary opponents that needed to be played on an annual basis. To your point, Duke, I think we went out of our way to protect North Carolina, NC State, and Wake Forest as more frequent opponents, and therefore they play other members in the league a far fewer number of times, maybe as few as twice over a 7-year span. So the fact that we've got others that have they play teams 5 times. Now, we couldn't get all the way to 7 because we couldn't make the math work, but they were regional opponents, and we play 5 times. It's better than 2. So being able to be that nimble and flexible has really served us well to customize our schedule as much as possible to the needs of each team.
Did you ever think math would be such an important part of these schedules?
I was told there would be no math. People ask me a lot about what are some of the skill sets that you need, like philosophy, politics is one, psychology, dealing with people, and then math, like even and odd, like the simplest stuff. Evens and odds is key to building a football schedule.
Yeah, got to think on your feet. All right, Michael Strickland here with us on Locked On Blue Devils today. As we look forward to this football season, what are the big messages that you like to send out to fans about just kind of what to expect on a week-to-week basis?
I think there's a lot of reason for confidence and optimism if you're a fan of an ACC team or if you're a fan of the ACC in general. We're in a really, really good spot. We've gone through quite a bit of change. A lot of things have been resolved in our position moving forward. I think we feel really, really good about it. I also think we got some pretty good football teams this year. I know there's certain teams by name that are getting a lot of attention right now, but we're notorious for having a team or two that kind of gets overlooked by members of the media and fans in the preseason, and they pierce through. Blue Devils, having been chief among them each of the past 2 seasons, right? Last year, nationally, and in the ACC, who would have predicted that SMU, Indiana, and Arizona State, all 3 would have been in the college football playoff, right? So, well, why can't that be anybody else out of the ACC or any of the other conferences? And with freedom of movement of players, with the revenue sharing structure that we've got in place, it's more reasonable now than ever before to think that a team can turn around their fortunes from one season to the next faster than ever before. And that's used to be hard to do in the sport of football with the volume of people that you needed. You can see it happen in basketball all the time with 2 or 3 really good players come in and you've changed your team. But now with football, we've got 30 and 40 new players per team per year. I wouldn't count anybody out at the start of the season.
Thanks for sitting down to do this.
You're welcome.
Michael Strickland here with us from the ACC. Today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. The easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money that you save on tickets, you could splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out with buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back on Locked On ACC, Locked On Blue Devils here today. JJ Jackson spending some time with Wes Durham from ESPN and the ACC Network. Football season must be right around the corner, Wes, if we're having meetings and conversations like this, man.
Yeah, it's almost like stumping season for politicians, right? One week it's one party, the next week it's another party, things like that. So, here in 10 days or so, we'll have all the rhetoric built. Then we'll go through practices, hope everybody stays healthy, and then kick it. We'll see where it goes in the first month.
Well, I'm not ready to move on to football quite yet. This is our first chance to catch up in a little while. I got to talk about the year that Jon Scheyer company just went on.
Amazing.
Cooper Flagg, got to see him for one season in college basketball before he's off to the league. How do you kind of sum up what that team looked like?
I just think John's done such a great job. It's really, really impressive what he's done. They've obviously had great recruiting classes. They've adapted to the landscape, all those things, JJ. The other aspect I look at is in the way they built their continuity along the way as doing that. And I think that's really important. I'm excited for their future, obviously. They've got such a great tradition and history and that kind of thing. It'll be interesting. Flagg was people say he's a generational player. I'm not sure he's a once-in-a-lifetime player. He was as good, and I was pretty forward. I think he's the best non-stunner freshman in ACC history. I really do. I think the contributions he made in so many different categories, things like that. But likewise, I developed a healthy respect for Con Kenneth. I love the way he's wired to play. I was just telling some guys in Charlotte this morning, I'm really excited about what he can be professionally. I feel the same about Cooper. Chuck Cooperstein, who does the Mavericks on radio, he and I had this long conversation in late June in Greensboro at the NSMA Awards, because I think he's going to be dynamic. I really do. But it also speaks to what John does from a preparation standpoint. Obviously, Jay Lucas left to go take a job, and they've been able to seamlessly kind of keep their staff in line. Their continuity is important, all those things. So, yeah, I'm really excited to do it.
And year by year, you're able to continue to reload with the recruiting.
Yeah, because you got a system built.
Yep.
And, much like we see today's college football coaches adapting, John and Duke already kind of living in the one and done, two and through kind of guy. And so, yeah, that's not been hard. Again, I think that's kind of part of where this goes.
All right, so let's talk a little football now. We'll stay in Durham. And
Sure.
Manny Diaz, a great first year as the head coach. Even beyond that big picture, you're looking at a Duke football program that has won 26 games over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
That just never happened.
Right, and it speaks to Nina King hiring Mike Elko, understanding that he was ready, and then understanding Manny Diaz needed a second chance to be a head coach. And Mike and Manny being kind of cut in the same corridor, I think helped a ton. The second part that I think really helps them is that Duke is into being good in football. They have shown you they want to be good. For me, they've been really good with transfer players,
right?
Especially grad transfers. And I think you got to find your niche in transfers, and they've done a nice job there. So I'm all about kind of seeing where Mensa fits. I think their run game is going to be interesting. I think defensively they're rock solid. I mean, he brings back the kind of players defensively, JJ, that they're going to need to be successful. VJ Anthony. I'm either getting old or VJ Anthony's been there a decade. So I'm pretty excited about that. I love Trey Freeman. He's always been, in my opinion, one of the more underrated players in the league. I think the other guy, Chandler Rivers. Here's another guy feels like he's been
around for a long time. Yep.
Right. Those veteran guys, the way they've added and supplemented, especially on defense, I think they're going to be good. Offensively, I want to see how Anderson Castle fits, to be honest, because I liked him at Appalachian in the spots I got to see him. Peyton Jones, I know Jonathan Brewer had a spot for him, but the focus is going to be on Benson. Bottom line, it's going to be on Benson. And so I'll keep an eye on him. I think the Illinois game's will be.
Right.
Of course, I'm an Elon guy. So week one,
right out of the gate,
I got to pull for my team, but I'm going to be really interested to see what happens in week 2 when they get Illinois.
And then the skill guys for Mensa to make plays with. When you're looking at Quayshawn Brown and Samir Hagan's coming back, then you bring in Andrew Anthony from Oklahoma, Cooper Barkate there as well. I mean, the quarterback is only as good as his receivers oftentimes, and it feels like those guys continue to take the right steps.
Yeah, Andrew Anthony is a little bit of a secret weapon. There are 2 guys coming in this league who I think can go high wire at wide receiver, who didn't come from FCA. I would say this: Andrew Anthony is Eric Rivers showing up at Georgia Tech the other.
Right.
Those are 2 guys that I think, with quarterbacks, who will have an opportunity to make plays right out of the gate.
All right, so we're talking about, obviously, Duke athletics here. You've seen Cameron indoor, and it's absolute craziest. You know all about the Cameron crazies. You've talked about the buy-in that's been there for football as well. What are those Saturdays like at Wallace Wade Stadium?
They've been pretty good. Yeah, the bigger the game, the better the crowd. I was there for Mike Elko's first game against Temple, where the students had an unbelievable showing. It's been nice to see that continue. And I think certainly Illinois deserves that.
Right.
And for me, that would be one of the things that I think they're trying to capitalize on is keep this momentum going. And hopefully they can do that as the year unfolds, for sure.
As we take a look at the schedule for the student football team, you mentioned Illinois there and then on conference. How crazy is it that you bring the Tulane quarterback in and you've got Tulane on the schedule? That doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that part and there.
Right.
You talk about guys that have really done good jobs coaching. Manny, obviously, dude. John Summerall's terrific. I'm a huge fan of his. I like NC State early. I like Syracuse early. I know they got to put a Cal. They get a bye behind it, though, which is good. Again, I think there are a couple schools, JJ. Virginia Tech, Virginia, I think, has to be good early. I think Duke does as well. It just feels like there are a handful of schools that the rest of the season is going to be kind of dictated by how they start.
Really excited for football season to be here. Excited that you were able to take some time out of your schedule to chat with me. Good to see you as always.
Thanks, JJ.
Wes Durham joining us here on Locked On Blue Devils. Welcome back into Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson spending some time with ESPN's Ryan McGee here with me at ACC Kickoff in Charlotte. Football is the big talking point here, obviously.
Sure.
But I got to start basketball with you.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to a project you took on at the beginning of the calendar year when you tried to explain to Cooper Flagg the magnificence of the Duke and North Carolina rivalry.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was personal, because I wasn't as deeply offended as a lot of people were when Cooper, not meaning to, said, well, essentially said it's just another game, whatever. And so I wrote that column because, I don't know Cooper at all. Marty, my colleague Marty Smith was just with him for his draft party up in Maine. But on the off chance you might read it, I'm like, dude, just so you know, this is what we grew up with. And what was fun was going and talking to, my guys I've gotten to know now who played in the game about their first experience. Because Jay Billis and even Michael Jordan at the racetrack, talked to me about it. And so everybody is kind of saying, just understand what it is. And so hopefully he read it. But I tell you this, when I watched that game, it felt like he started to understand. Okay, because the crowd was not going to let him not understand it, right? But I appreciate you remembering that.
No, absolutely. I mean, Duke basketball goes miles and miles and miles, and so for Cooper to be able to take part in that.
And what a player, man!
Yeah,
I hate that we only get these guys for a year, but it is what it is. It's been that way for a while, and certainly in Durham, they're used to it. But my daughter was asking me, who's not a big basketball fan, she's like, so explain to me what makes him so good. I go, you hear all these basketball people talk about length. He plays long. Cooper Flagg will forever be the definition of that. He looks like the Fantastic Four movies coming out. He looks like Mr. Fantastic, like stretching out. It's just, but I'm really excited to see him. It was fun watching him this summer, so I'm excited to see what he does in the league.
Well, obviously you've been in the state your whole life, and you think about what Duke basketball has been over the 42 years with Mike Krzyzewski. As you sit here and think, though, 3 years now into the Jon Scheyer era, and it's not looking like Duke's going to slow down at any point.
No, it was the right call, and I don't know John other than a couple of brief conversations, but nobody wants to follow the man, right? So I was just at SEC media days, and I was talking to Kalen DeBoer about that, and of course followed Nick Saban in Alabama, and we were talking about the challenge of that. And for John, it's a little different because he was in the family and he was kind of the chosen one. But listen, I mean, we've seen a lot of chosen ones. I mean, I know Matt Doherty, right? We've seen a lot of that were in the family, and it just didn't work. And so what he's done is pretty remarkable. And if there was going to be a hiccup, I feel like it's already happened, right? And so now they're just it's business as usual.
Number one recruiting class after number one recruiting class.
I mean, whatever. It's just how they do it.
Cameron Indoor is still what it is. Okay, let's talk a little football now, because also being native North Carolinians, not really used to this type of success that Duke has had.
Yeah.
It's great. If you look at the numbers, 26 wins for Duke over the last 3 seasons, and different head coaches. How has this happened?
Well, and you talking about the head coaches, and the reality was, before we started talking, I told you I saw Elko just last week at SEC Media Days, and his family literally just left Durham. His family stayed behind. His son went to school there. I remember talking to Elko last year. I think we were at Florida. And he knows that I grew up in the Triangle. And he's like, hey, man, he goes, we're going down to South Carolina. He goes, I'm going to sneak up and see my son play on Friday night. He was so excited. So he loves Durham so much. And then I've known Manny Diaz. Manny and I started at ESPN together, in the 90s. Manny, for folks who don't know, Manny was going to be the guy when it came to producing NFL features so Manny and I started at ESPN together, these entry-level jobs called production assistant. You answer phones, you're cutting highlights and all that. And when Manny had a job at Miami, we actually did a story for College Game Day where he and I went back, looked at some old photos and all that stuff. So to answer your question, it's about two coaches who are very different people, but fundamentally they're the same guy. They're just good people, and they're good football people. And so kind of like John following Coach K, to me, you didn't want to disrupt that momentum that you had, with Elko and that amazing team and game day, all those things. But to me, Manny was the choice because Manny understands the Duke culture. He understands the ACC. He understands the Triangle. He coached down the road too. So it's knock on wood. Just because he's my friend, I think that certainly in the short term it looked like the right decision. And still, I mean, a decade plus of David Cutcliffe, who did and another great friend. I saw his son down in Oxford, Mississippi this week.
And who did a great job making the program what it is today. And now these guys have been able to come over. We'll talk about Cameron Indoor Stadium and its significance within the sport. Wallace Wade Stadium has never really been that. Although over the last few years there have been more games. College Game Day has been there for the first time ever. We've got the Wallace Wade wackos that are trying to make a little bit of noise. Just your thoughts on more of a buy-in around the sport.
So I wrote so when Game Day went to when game day went to Wallace Way, so it's an interesting thing on Saturdays because we do Marty McGee on the SEC Network,
right?
And so we're in an SEC game, but I write these essays, voice these essays, narrate these essays for game day, and so I'm on both shows, right. But I'm never with game day. And so the way it works is we find out where game day is going to go on Saturday night, and I will call the producers of game day and say, hey, I'd love to write an essay about so and so, and it's usually based on where they are.
Right.
Well, when I find out they're going to Duke, I called them. I usually wait till Sunday. I called them that night. I go, I have to write an essay about Wallace Way Stadium because it's the best kept secret in college football.
Right.
The fact that it hosted the Rose Bowl, and the fact that it was modeled after the Rose Bowl, and Wallace Wade is one of the great coaches no one remembers. Won a national championship at Alabama, and obviously had great success at Duke. And so I grew up going to games there. My dad was an ACC referee. I used to run when I was in high school. I ran track meets when the track was inside. We used to run. It was a Duke Invitational. I would come up to Enloe High School. I ran the 800 at that racetrack. And so I remember when they had the Olympic Festival, and it was kind of this non-Olympic year thing, and all the track events. I saw Carl Lewis run win the long jump there, and so it's I love that place so much, and so to have the opportunity to educate. I remember when Coach Cutcliffe, I went to Tennessee, and when David Cutcliffe, when I was a student at Tennessee, he was quarterback coach, and when Cut got the job at Duke. I talked to him pretty early on, and we talked about Wallace Way, and he's like, man, because there's so much history, he goes, but it needs some updating. I go, yeah. I go, because I remember, this is how old I am, and my dad was an ACC referee. My dad officiated the first night game in the history of Wallace Way Stadium. I think they played Indiana.
Wow.
And part of the big thing was we put money into the stadium, and they were really proud of their trough, the troughs in the men's rooms, the big aluminum troughs. And I didn't go to a game there for like 20 years. I went to school in the SEC, and when I came back again, I was like, the troughs are still here. Like
right.
Everything was the same. And so the updates they've made and the updates they're continuing to make, I think that I really have always believed it's one of the most underrated places in football.
Last thing for you here, Ryan McGee with us on Locked On Blue Devils. Looking at this Duke football team, they're the big spenders of the offseason, bringing Darian Mensah in to play quarterback from Tulane. The irony that Tulane is on your schedule, Duke's going to be playing there, and he's going back.
Funny how that works, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And
Manny coaching against Miami. Yeah, it's funny how those things work.
But now we'll see what Darian Mensah is able to do, kind of taking a step up in competition at the ACC level. But man, to think that Duke would be getting the prize quarterback that everybody was wanting.
And if you're a Duke football fan or just a fan of Duke athletics, you got to be really excited about that because. I get fans stop us all the time, about what do you think about what's going on? I'm like, listen, what you need to see from your school is a willingness to spend the money. So if they're not going to spend the money, then I'm not talking about bankrolling an entire roster of 100 guys, but you got to be willing to pick and choose and roll your quarters and go get the guy you need to go get. It's free agency now. It is. They don't want us to call it that, but that's what it is. So if you're a Duke football fan, the willingness to do that and to throw a Hail Mary literally and go get you a quarterback, that is an indicator that, all right, they're in this. This athletic department is in this for ball. And so it's going to be everyone should be very excited about it because it feels like a commitment to let's keep this rolling.
Something we've talked about in the past. As you know, I'm an Asheville native.
You are?
I have a lot of people, obviously, that have roots in Asheville as well. I've got to talk about the book and the summer that you spent with the Asheville.
Yeah, welcome to the circus of baseball. And it was, I was telling the story. I was talking to our buddy John Meaner-Perrell from Boston College, and we were talking about when I lived in New England and I went with Manny Diaz, and I went to go work at ESPN. Well, I bombed my interview, and it was a year before they hired me. So what did I do during that year? I went and worked for the Tourists. and it's fun. Most fun you'll ever have for $100 a week, right? And what's been, and you'll appreciate this, JJ, because it's your home, but that book has kind of taken on a second life since Helene.
Sure.
And I've been really fortunate. The team has auctioned off. We've gotten some books signed and gotten some former players to sign them, and they've auctioned them off to raise some money. And I've been working really closely with the tour because, as you know, and it kind of goes to the reason that, what was said in the book about McCormick Field's kind of the heart of Asheville. Yeah. During Helene recovery, there was McCormick Field in the middle of renovations, and that's where people went to get water, and that's where people went to get electricity, and so yeah, that book's kind of taken on a second life, and the timing of Herline was never going to be good, but the timing of the book, I think, has helped some people understand, hopefully, what Asheville's all about. So, and I've always appreciated your support of it.
Go read it, folks. Ryan
Go Tourists.
McGee. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here, man.
Yes, sir.